Hello everyone, this is what we're going to be building today. So we have a Spotify desktop application over here and a small Express server running that it's connected to. The server is going to provide all of the data about the songs, playlists, etc. and also stream a sample audio file when you play any song from over here. We can go to any playlist and the UI is pretty interactive. Um, Interact with the songs through any of these buttons. For example, if you like a song, it's going to reflect everywhere and also send a request to the server in order to handle it on the backend. You can also unlike a song, and there's some when a song is playing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is set up a small Express server. It's going to have only 4 APIs. One for getting the list of playlists. It's going to return a list of playlist objects. And then for each of these playlists, we have an API to fetch all of the songs inside that playlist. We also have an API to like or dislike a given song ID. And then finally, we have an API that streams audio. For this project, it's just gonna stream a sample audio file that I already have. So regardless of the song you're playing, it's gonna stream the same audio file, but the same logic can be extended to any given song. So what I'm gonna do is create a new folder, npm init, and the first thing I like to do is declare type as module. And now we can install Express and create a new file, server.js. Now over here, first thing I'm going to do is import Express. And declare an Express app. Now we can declare a sample API over here. And the request handler. So this is just for testing. I'm gonna return some sample value. Right. Now if I go over here, we can see now if we run this server using node server.js, you can see our server is running, and we can check this by going to our hello API. And you can see that we're getting the value returned from here. Now let's go ahead and create these APIs. The first one is going to be /API/playlists. And for this, we already have a bunch of sample playlist data that I've put together in this file. So it has some colors that's going to be helpful on the front end while we switch between different playlists. And it has a bunch of playlist objects which have ID, title, color, a cover image, and artists associated with that playlist. So what we can do over here, simply export this, and what I'm going to do is move this file into our server directory. And import all of the playlists from here. All right, before we go further, there's one more thing I like to do over here. So I'm going to stop the server and install NodeMon. So NodeMon is gonna restart our server every time we make changes to the code, which makes the development procedure much easier. In order for this to work, we need to go in our package.json file and add another command. So I'm going to call it start. Right. Now if I run all right. I'm gonna get rid of this. Okay, as you can see, every time I make a change, the server restarts. And now that we have fixed the bugs, our server is back up and running, and we can continue on. So we have our playlists objects over here, and for this API, we're going to keep it very simple and just return all of these. For the second one, so this is done, we need to return a list of songs. So if we go over in our sample data, you're going to find that we have a bunch of song objects as well. Each of these has an ID, title, an image, the artist, the album, and the duration. All of this is going to be helpful when we load this data up in our front end and display it within our playlist UI. So something I'm just going to do over here is we only have this one list of songs, right? We don't have a list of songs for every single playlist. So just for here, what I'm going to do is okay, we're going to leave this as it is, but in here, we're going to send in the same list of songs with a different set of IDs for depending on the playlist ID that we're receiving in our request. So if we go here, we can write playlist ID and write query.id over here, and then first thing I'm going to do is, let me actually just write this here. And import the list of songs over here. Then we're going to create this new list of songs, right? So I'm going to say and in here we're going to take each song object, return everything but the ID, and for the ID we're going to create a new one, and it's simply going to be our playlist ID underscore and then we can return this as our response. Let's test these out. Playlists, get this entire list of playlists, and now if I write songs ID equals 1, you can see that we have our list of songs with the IDs modified. So if I have the playlist ID as 1, we have 1 underscore 2, 1 underscore 3, etc. If I have playlist ID as 3, we get these IDs. I'm going to change this label key value over here. I'm just going to call it songs. Awesome. Okay, next we're going to create this audio streaming API. For this one, we're going to write /API/audio/stream, and in here, first thing we'll need is the range from the request headers. So this request is going to be made using an audio element in the HTML, and it's going to send us a range like this. If we do not have a range, we're just going to return a 400 response that says requires range header. Now we're going to define a file path for this project. I have a sample audio file over here, so I'm going to move this into our server directory, and I'm going to add sample.mp3 over here. Now once we have the file path, we're going to need a couple of things. So I'm going to define another function that says get stream started, and it's gonna take the file path and the range as parameters. First thing we're going to do is determine the size of the file. So we can do this using fs dot stat sync file path dot size, and this is going to give us the audio size in bytes. And now we're going to create some chunk size. So this is the number of bytes that we're going to be streaming at a time. So we're gonna keep this as 10 raised to 6, which is roughly 1 byte, which is a nominal size of an audio to be sent in the stream. Next, we're gonna need the starting byte for our stream, and we can determine this by using regex. So we're gonna remove all of the digits. All of the non-digit characters and convert this into a number. For the end byte, we're gonna simply add our chunk size to the starting byte. So start plus chunk size, and we need to check if this is not exceeding the total audio size. So this, and then finally we're going to define a content length, which is simply end minus start plus 1. Now we can return all of these. From our function. Now what we can do over here is extract all of these out. So start, end, audio size, content length equals get stream start end, and we're going to pass in the file path as well as the range. Now we're going to define some headers for our response. First thing is content range, which is going to be bytes followed by the start to end, and we're going to need the audio size over here. Second thing is accept ranges, and the value will be bytes. Finally, we're going to pass content length and content type, which in our case will be set to audio/mp3. Once we have all of this, we can simply write this into our response. Create a read stream from our file. And we're going to pass in the starting and ending bytes over here. Finally, we can pipe this in our response. Something that's missing over here is we're going to have to import Now we can start building our front end. For front end, we're going to use Electron.js to build our desktop application. So we're going to go into docs and okay, let's start here. First thing I want to do is in here create a directory called Electron Frontend. And in here, we're gonna, I believe, follow these steps. So we have package.json. We're gonna install Electron. And I'm also gonna install NodeMon so that our Electron application reloads while we change the code. Once this is done, go into package.json, go in here, create a new start script. Write NodeMon exec electron dot. I think this should be enough. Now let's get back to our instructions. So we have npm start, this is fine. And I'm just gonna go over here and actually copy all of this. Main.js, can also create preload.js. I'm going to create an index.html file. Now we can go in here, paste all of this, close it out, close these out as well, go in preload, paste all of this, and paste our index.html file. Now once this is done, let me just check if we're missing something in the basic setup. Okay, seems right. Let's go in here and write npm start. Okay, so it has started our Electron process. If we go in here, okay, there's an error, cannot find index.js. Right. Okay, so we have this as index.js. Let me actually stop this process and rename main.js to index.js and then rerun npm start. Now we have our desktop application ready, and if we go in here and essentially make some changes, it's gonna reload over here. Awesome. Now let's build the basic structure of our UI. First thing I want to do is install Uno CSS, which allows me to use Tailwind CSS classes without any of the build steps. So if we go here, cd and runtime, we're gonna use right, we'll use this Tailwind CSS preset, and we're gonna use this runtime. And let's see if this works. So I'm just gonna give it class name, background, neutral, 800. That is weird. Wait a second. So I'm just gonna go over here and when dot contents dot open dev tools. All right. So now we have this, and we can see the errors. Right. We're gonna have to fix this. Let me actually change one more thing. Title. So if we go in here, add this. Right. Now this is closer to what we want. And for this, we're gonna go here. We add the content security policy. We need to add the domains over here. So I'm going to copy this and we're going to copy this. Right, now our Tailwind CSS classes are working. We have the dev tools ready. Let's start laying out the basic structure of our layout. First thing I want to do is change a couple of things over here. First of all, this is going to be display flex and overflow by auto. Right now I'm going to create a div for my sidebar. So we're going to give it 1/4 of the width of the entire window, and I'm going to have padding top and some padding on the left. And then over here we can declare our first item within the sidebar, which is going to be a home button. This one we're gonna add both a home icon as well as some text. But first, what I want to do is have some padding, and then I'm going to set the text color and the text color on hover, and I want to set cursor pointer. In here you can write home. Now see our sidebar showing up. If we hover on it, the text color changes. I see multiple of them showing up. That's fine. We're gonna add the icons later on. Next, I want to have a section for my playlists. So another div, some padding on the top, actually some margin on the top as well. Then over here I'm going to write playlists, and I want this to have a slightly smaller font size and slightly different text color. Go this. Right, so now we have playlists, and below this we're going to add all of the names, the playlist names that you can select from over here. Now for that, I'm just going to create a div over here, give it an ID. I'm going to call it sidebar playlists, and a little bit of margin on the top. And we're going to render this using JavaScript. So let's start by adding our very first JavaScript file. So we're going to create a script tag. We're going to give it type module so that we can import and export different stuff out of our different scripts. And first one is going to be app.js. We don't have app.js yet, So right, so let's go ahead and create that. Right, so we're gonna add.js, and we can close this over here. Actually, before we write some code over here, I want to go over some basic workflow of how our JavaScript is going to be written. And on that note, I'm going to actually create another one of these. And over here, I'm going to call it state.js. So the way we're going to do this is we'll have some states declared in a separate file. If you're coming from React background, you're going to find this very familiar, but essentially doing it all with just plain JavaScript. So we're going to have some states, right? For example, the list of playlists, the currently selected playlist, the currently selected song, things like whether the song is playing. So, and we're going to render different parts of the UI based on those states. So for example, if we're going to have a player down here, do we want to show a play button or a pause button? That's going to depend on the state, which says if the currently selected song is playing. And when the state changes, all of these states are going to be attached to some callback functions. So whenever the state changes, the callback functions are going to be called, and they are typically going to be re-rendering functions. So if the state changes, we re-render particular sections of the UI with the updated UI. So if you pause the song, we re-render this portion of the UI because the state has changed, and essentially show a play button here instead of a pause button. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually create state.js file, and inside this we're going to add a couple of functions and class that we're going to reuse throughout our app. First one is going to be insert HTML, or actually, yeah, let's start with insert HTML. What this does is, for a given element and some HTML code, it's going to use insert adjacent HTML and add it over here. The other one is going to be replace HTML. Here we're going to call replace children, which essentially empties out the element. Once you're done with that, you can actually just call insert HTML. So overall, once you call this, what it's going to do is empty out the element and replace, or essentially insert, the new HTML that you've passed into this function inside the element. The other thing we're going to need is a state class. We'll add a constructor where we store the value, and we declare a list of callback functions. And then we define a setter function. Setter function is important because if we just directly assign a new value to an instance of the state, we're not gonna be able to call all of the callback functions associated with it. If we have a dedicated setter function, it just becomes easier to handle all the operations we want to be triggered when this value changes. So I'll write new value, assign the new value over here, and then we're gonna run all of the callback functions. Callbacks can be async, so we're gonna wrap this inside a promise.all. So we'll take callback here and write promise dot resolve dot then callback. The other thing we need is a way to attach callback functions to the state. So we're going to add an attach function, which simply pushes this into our callbacks array. Awesome. So how does this work? Well, let's start with playlists, right? So we're going to have a playlist state. We declare this like so. So the initial value is going to be an empty array, and what we can do over here is when this changes, when the value inside playlists changes, let's say if we are fetching something from our backend API or through any user interaction, we can attach we can attach function that's gonna essentially re-render the playlist section of the UI, right? So as soon as this value changes, no matter where we change it from, it's going to re-render that portion of the UI, and it's going to feel extremely interactive within our application. So right now, let's start with playlists, and we're going to also declare some other functions, some other values over here. First thing is going to be our server. So I'm just going to write localhost 4000. Let's now go into our app.js file, and we're gonna, so we need we have a playlist state, right? Okay, this is what we're gonna do. First of all, I'm gonna export replace HTML and playlist over here. Go here. Actually, I'm also gonna we're gonna fix that in a second, but right now what we need is server playlists place HTML from state.js. Now we're gonna say document.add event listener DOM content loaded. Okay. So when the UI loads, and we'll fetch the list of playlists from the API we built earlier. JSON, and now what we can do is simply say playlists.set data. Actually, we're gonna get the entire list over here, but yeah, once we're done with this, the state we declared earlier is over here. This is going to update, and when it updates, it's gonna invoke all of the callbacks that we attached to this. So over here, I'm gonna attach one callback. I'm gonna call it render sidebar playlists. Right. And this function is not defined yet. We're gonna define it right here. Render sidebar playlists. And what it's gonna do is take a look at the value inside the playlist state and replace the HTML of the sidebar portion of our UI with the updated HTML that contains all of the playlist names and buttons, for example. So here we're gonna just say let's just declare h for let playlist of playlists, and in here what I'm going to do is add all of the HTML for each individual playlist. And let's leave it for 1 second. Let me declare another HTML playlist item. Right, we're gonna pass in the playlist object, and we're gonna return some HTML over here. It's gonna be a div, and we're gonna add display flex over here, and let me just take a look at what we have. So we have some padding over here. We're gonna follow this same convention, so text neutral let's copy this over here inside the div. I'm gonna, for now, let me just add the name of the playlist, right? And if you take a look at the sample playlist data, you're going to see each playlist has a title, and we're going to use this as the contents inside this p tag. So we're here, I'm going to say playlist.title, and we're going to also add an onClick function. So handle playlist click, and we're gonna pass in playlist.id. This function is not defined yet, but we're going to define it in just a bit. Now, once you have the HTML for each playlist item, you can actually add that over here. So HTML playlist item playlist. Once you have this, you can use the replace HTML function we defined earlier, and over here we're going to say document.get element by ID. In here, we're gonna use this particular div that we declared in our sidebar. So we're gonna paste this value over here. Then in here, we're gonna replace the HTML inside that div with the HTML we constructed over here. Now, once we're done with this, we can export this function, and in here we're going to need this function. So what we can do is import it, render, and we're going to add .js over here. Let me just restart this. Right. So you can see an error over here, app.js line 19. Let's open this up. So something you need to remember when using this state or any instance of this state class is that the value is not directly accessible. You need to access the value by this variable over here. So when you say let playlist of playlists, it does not really mean anything. We're going to need dot value over here. Once we save this, now we can see that we have essentially populated the sidebar portion with the HTML we constructed as the state changed after API request. So for example, let me refresh this, and you're going to see that we sent a request over here. We got the following response, and we updated the state with it. Once the state got updated, the HTML inside this portion of our UI got re-rendered, and therefore our UI is now interactive with respect to all of the changes being made in the state. Something I'm gonna fix over here is just bits of padding. So if take a look at, we have PL2 over here. This is for the entire div, and then inside we have P2 over here. So I'm just gonna go in here and maybe add a little bit of padding. Let me just take a look. Right, so we can maybe add a little bit of padding over here. And the other thing is we're gonna go in here. Right, looks neat. Now, when we click on any of these playlist items, and we can take a look over here as well. So if you go in here, sidebar playlists, and we have all of these items, right? And you can see that each one of them has an on-click function assigned to it. Now, this function is not defined, but we're going to define it right now. And I think this is where this entire pattern of having a state with associated callback functions is going to feel valuable. So we have this, right? Let's define this function right here. We're going to have to attach this to window object because this is a module script, and we're going to need to expose this function inside the window object, right? But what needs to happen when we click on a playlist? The answer is we just need to update one state. We're going to declare a state for the currently selected playlist. So if we go over here, we can write const playlist I null, and we're going to attach some functions to this, right? So for example, when the current playlist changes, we want the content over here to change along with it, right? But within the onClick handler, all we need to ensure is that this state gets its new updated correct value. Everything else is being handled by the callback functions attached to the state. So we don't really need to think about what needs to be rendered or what needs to be shown. When we're writing this particular function, all we need to do is go over here and first of all, copy this, add it here, then add it here, and then finally just set the value of this state over here, right? Now, once this happens, we're gonna need to render something, right? So let me here, we're gonna maybe say render. So we're gonna actually need a couple of things. Let me open this function up. First thing we want is we're gonna need to fetch the list of songs, and we're gonna need to fetch that list of songs, display a loading state while the list is being fetched, and then re-render the songs list portion of the UI. Right now we have none of those, so let's begin by adding some basic structural components over here. So I'm going to save this, go over here, and so this is our sidebar over here. I'm going to add another div. This one is going to be let me actually go over here. We're going to just write w3x4 and so okay, we're going to give it the height of the screen, and we're going to make this scrollable inside. In here we want two things. Number one, we need we're gonna display, so if we take a look over here, we're gonna display the cover image over here, right? And below that we're gonna display the list of songs that we have, and below that we're gonna have the player, which means the play button, the pause button, things like that. And the player is going to be sticky right over here, but everything else is going to be scrollable. So we're going to put all of this in here. Start with the cover. I'm going to write list cover. And below this, we're gonna have song list. And we're gonna give it a fixed height over here. So maybe start with 60 where it goes. Just gonna give it like a random color just to see where it's at. Right, so this seems reasonable for an album cover. The rest of the area is going to be filled with songs. And so we have this. Within this area, we're going to go with an image tag. Right, and it's going to need a source. We can actually let me actually just change this to image right here. All right, and it's going to need a source. Let's see. So the first thing I want to do is update the cover image, right? Because if you look at the playlist data, each one of them already has a cover image URL. So we don't really need to fetch this from the server again. We can actually instantly update this. So we're going to go over here and just say document.get element ID playlist cover, and maybe attach this to playlist.id. Not this. We're gonna actually need something else. So this is the ID of the current playlist, right? But we need the actual playlist object. And for that, what we can do is write another small function that says find playlist by ID, right? And we have the ID over here. What we're going to do is simply say so we have all of our playlists in here, playlist.value, and we're gonna find. So in here we're gonna say let's say this is our playlist. What I want is p.id should be equal to id, right? And we're gonna return this. So now if we go over here, we're gonna say current playlist. Let's find playlist by id, and we're gonna say current playlist.id. In here we can simply say dot cover, save this, go in here, save this as well, and okay, let's see what happens. Cannot read properties of undefined. Okay, so there's a problem over here. Right. I think I know what the problem is. Let's actually go over here. returns the value of the first element in the array where the predicate is true. So I'm gonna check a couple of things. The first one is I want to wrap this inside quotes. Right, and go in here to pass in the value. Right, as you can see, it's not working. The only thing is I don't want the image to be distorted like this. So let me open this up. Right. Tag object fit. Go in here, and I think what I want is this one. Right, object fit and CSS. And now I can just add this within our image tag right over here. What this means is, regardless of the size of the image, we're gonna get a good looking playlist cover. And now we can deal with this part. So, right, let's get in here. So these are all the things inside our current selected playlist ID callback, right? The other thing I want to have over here is I want to fetch the song list, and for that all I need to do is, one, make this function async, and second, fetch this from server slash API slash songs. Right, this is what we're looking for, and we're gonna pass in the playlist ID over here. So id dot value. Right. Now once this is done, we can simply turn this into JSON. And now we have the song list, right? Where are we gonna store the song list? We're gonna create another state for it. Song list dot set data dot songs. Now, we're also going to do one more thing. So I don't want this red dummy background over there. So what I'm going to do is go in here, and once we've fetched all of our playlists, we've updated the value of our playlist state. We can actually set the value or set the initial value for our selected playlist by calling playlist.value 0.id. So now, as you can see, the first playlist is being used for the cover image as soon as this data is loaded. Now we can go back over here, and we're adding this within songs, right? And you can actually just go refresh this, check here. We are fetching /API songs id equals 1, right, for the first playlist that we are selecting by default, right? And this is how, note that we did not have to really add anything over here. All we did was just update the value of this particular state, and it automatically triggers all of this, which includes fetching the song list, right? So if you look at this, we hit this API and we get back this response, which we can use to render the song list below the cover image over here. Okay, over here I'm gonna add I want this to stand out a little bit, and for this to work, we're gonna do flex column, right? And in here, this one has a fixed height, so I'm gonna say grow 0, shrink 0, and in here I'm gonna say grow. Right now, this entire area is being occupied by our songs list div, and in here we can essentially populate our songs list. Now, in order to do that, we can actually do it right here, but I want to actually keep this separate, so we're going to create another script. So we go over here and we write song list.js. Maybe just keep it like this. All right. And in here, I'll define a couple of things. Most important thing is render song list, right? This is the function that's going to be attached to the song list state. Export, and in here I'm going to say port need to go over here, song list, add it in here, and now we can go here and just load this from state.js. Now song list is going to give you something like this, right? We have ID, title, we have an image, artists, etc., right? So we're gonna create rows for each of the songs, and we're gonna populate them with this information that we have added to our state. Close this off, and over here I'm gonna say song of song list dot value HTML song item, right? We're gonna pass song over here. HTML song item song. Here we're gonna need a couple of things. First of all, we're gonna have a div, right? It's gonna have let's add some base padding over here. I'm gonna go with by maybe 3. Start there, and we're gonna start with something simple over here, right? So we're gonna say flex items center, and then in here we're gonna say song.title, right? And we're also gonna need some text color, so I'm gonna go with this over here, and yeah, let's save this and check what's happening over here. Render song list. All we gotta do now is go here and attach render song list. Okay. We have this coming from here. We're gonna have to import replace HTML, and document dot get element id song. What do we have here? Song list, right? We're gonna go with song list here, element comma h. If you go here, you can see song lists coming over here, right? And while you can't really see this area being re-rendered, it actually is being re-rendered, because once you change the currently selected playlist, the song list is refetched, and the value of this state is updated, which means the song list is rendered again. And we have scroll is working fine, sidebar is sticky. We're gonna update maybe this value later on, but right now this seems to be working fine. Okay, now let's add some more things over here. First of which is going to be the where, say we have fixed width, right? And I'm going to actually do something else over here. So let's say index, maybe just have it at 0, pass this, right? And now we go over here and we have this index value. Okay, number 1. Number 2, I'm gonna make this grow I'm gonna also add a couple of other things over here. So I'm gonna say hover. I essentially want a gradient over here. Background gradient. Yeah, this sounds right. It's PG gradient to R. Right, and then hover from and to. So I'm gonna say neutral 900. Right, and as you can see, when we hover on this, we get this nice looking gradient, which is pretty good. The other thing I want to do over here is go in and say center. Yep, that looks about right. Okay, I'm also gonna add grow 0, shrink 0 over here, maybe right before the song title. I'm also gonna add v10 over here, grow 0, shrink 0. And here I can add an image. The source is gonna be song dot yeah, song dot image. Cover width 100%, height 100%. Okay, center. Right, so now we have these images looking good. Great. Now I'm gonna add a couple of other classes over here. So maybe a little bit of padding to the left to separate these out. And now finally, after this area over here, I'm gonna add two things. One is gonna be a like button, and the other one is gonna be the duration. Let's start with duration first. So song.duration here. Right. Easy enough. Do we have, so let me just check. So if I have some notes where I have a bunch of SVG icons, shuffle icon, okay, let me get on that. But first okay, we'll get to that, but we want to do a couple of things first, right? So number one, I want to have an on-click function on this, and I'm going to say handle song click, right? And in here I'm going to pass in the song dot id, right? Okay, but we don't have this function yet. We're gonna declare it. Handle song click, right, and it takes the ID of the song, and all we gotta do over here is add another state. So we're gonna say currently, we're gonna add two states: current song ID, new state. The other is playing, right? Because the song could be in pause state as well. So, and we're gonna start with false. Right now we can just add these two over here. It's current song ID, and then is playing. Now over here, all we need to do again is do two things, which is current song ID dot set ID, and we want the song to start playing, so is playing dot set true. That's all we need. Everything else is going to be handled by the callbacks attached to these two states. Nice. Now what happens when you have this song selected? Okay, for one, I want to have I want to replace this number over here with an SVG, so that you can immediately tell which song is playing, and we're gonna also maybe like change the text color to green for this particular row if this is the song that's playing. Song.id should be equal to current song ID dot value, and is playing dot value should be true. If this is happening, that this is the current song that is being played. If that is the case, we can go over here and do something like this. So if the song is not playing, this is going to be rendered, but if the song is playing, we can let's see. Okay, let's try it like this. So before I show you this, I wanna actually show you something over here. So in our assets, we have a bunch of things, and this is the SVG I want over here. Okay. I also want cursor. Let's change this to pointer. Right. So we're gonna add more things over here, but for now, the only thing I want re-rendered is the song list, and I also want it to be re-rendered when is playing changes, right? So as you can see, when I click on a song, the state of current song ID and is playing both change, and therefore we can see this, right? So this entire area is being re-rendered with the conditions we defined over here, and therefore you can see the SVG over there. Maybe change the size a little bit, maybe 6. Looks a bit weird. I'm gonna maybe let me check what I can do. If I change this, right? Yeah, this looks neat. Great. It's already looking pretty good. Now, if I go to a different playlist, see, this is where you can see, even though the song titles are the same, it's a different song list, and they have like different IDs because this is not the song that was playing. The song, where is the song? Okay, this was the song playing in electronic party playlist. But if we go to a different playlist, you can see like these are effectively different songs because they're not marked as being played, and their values are not in these states, which is why the UI does not show the SVG over there. If we go back to electronic party playlists, we can see the SVG. Great. Okay, before we go ahead, I'm gonna add, so as you can see right now, we can't drag this window around. I'm gonna fix that. And what we need to do is go over here at the very top, add a div. I'm gonna give it an ID, draggable class, absolute, top 0, left 0, and then right over here I'm gonna add some styling. WebKit, let me check the name over here. electron draggable region. Go over here. Custom draggable region, right? Copy this over here. Now we have a transparent div over here that we can hold and drag this window around. So that's pretty cool. There's one other thing I want to do before we get into the player over here. So I'm going to go to song list, and in this parent div I'm going to add group, and once you have this group in place, I'm going to go over here and declare another div over here. So let me pull this here, go over here, right? And in here, I'm gonna add a an SVG for a play icon. I'm gonna pick this up from over here. And it's gonna have the same width, height. Center. The only difference is we're gonna keep this hidden by default, and it's gonna show up when we hover on the song row, which is this parent div. So if this happens, we put it in display flex, and in here head. Now as you can see, when we hover on any song, the play icon is visible, and when we move somewhere else, it's just the numbers. Of course, this still works, right? But for all other songs, we have this behavior. Let's add the player. First off, we go to index.html, and we're gonna place the player below this. We'll say id player class absolute bottom 0, right 0, w 3/4. G neutral. Let me just let's say 20. And let's add right, so now this is our player, and as you can see, some of the songs are hidden over here. In order to deal with that, we'll just add bottom padding over here. So now we can go all the way till the 10th song, which is the last song in the song list. And this area, we're gonna, if we remove this and add the same background color, it's gonna look like this. Right, over here we're gonna add the play button, pause button, things like that. Now in order for this to work, we're gonna create, just like song list, we're gonna create another file over here. We're gonna call it player.js. One more thing, let me hide this. Over here I'm gonna declare an audio element. This is and I'm gonna give it a width of 0, height of 0. It's gonna be not gonna be visible. Okay, right, but this is what's gonna call our streaming API endpoint, right? But we're gonna control it with the buttons present within our player div. Let me save this, and I'm gonna go over here. We need replace HTML as usual. Then we need a couple of other things. So is playing, let's go over here, current song ID. Do we need, we at least need this, right? At the very least, don't really care about the other things right now. So we'll leave it at that, right? And we're going to declare a function, obviously, render player. Get element by ID player, replace with some new HTML. Now let's define this HTML. So in here, how should we handle this? Okay, I'm gonna add 3 buttons for start. So let's say flex. I'm just gonna give it a px of 6, items center, justify between. Right, now over here we can add some buttons, right? For the first button, I need I'm gonna need the heart icon. For that, we're gonna go inside my notes, go all the way somewhere here. So we have 2 icons, one for heart empty and one for heart full. If the song, so we're gonna fetch from our API if the song has already been liked, in which case we're gonna render this one. And by default we'll render this SVG. In fact, let me dump these in a whole different file, components.js, just to keep it easy to use. Heart icon empty. We're going to return then const heart full. Now we can go back here and add some conditions. Now in order to know the state of the song, we're going to use this state right here. So we need current song ID and also the song list. Right now we can go in here and we can create a variable that says is current song liked, or before that let's say current song list dot value dot find s dot id equals current song id dot value. Now once you have this, you can create a condition like this and then have two different heart icons. So import heart icon empty, heart icon full. Like this. So this is going to be the first button. We're going to add on-click listeners later on. Second button will be the play pause button. We can go back here and we also have playlist icon. We're going to put that in place, but first we'll use this particular icon. I'll create two more components. Like this. Now in here, we'll add a similar condition is playing dot value, then we're gonna need the pause icon, otherwise we need the play icon. And finally we're gonna add one more button over here. The shuffle icon. Okay, now that this is in place, we can connect it to our states. So when do we want this to be re-rendered? Number one, when the current song changes. So over here, we can actually just attach them separately as well, but I'll do it like this. And when is playing changes, so here we can go here, and as you can see, we have no player right now. Right, we'll need some width over here. Okay, we can see the icons over here once we click on a song. If there is no song playing, we can just select the first song by default, similar to how we selected the first playlist. So we'll go over here, songlist.set. We'll add current song id dot set data dot songs. Now we need to change the colors over here, so we can go here and add neutral 400. Now it looks much better. Now we'll just add some functionality so that these buttons work, but even in its current state, you can see once a song starts playing, the player is re-rendered and this button changes. So like this, and then it changes to pause. Something similar is going to happen when we click pause. This is also going to get re-rendered, the entire song list, which means these icons will change accordingly. And let's say if we click on like, and there's a like button over here as well, both of them will be re-rendered along with each other. Now let's add some functionality in here. So the first thing we'll need is an on-click function over here. Says handle play pause. All we need to do over here is change the value of is playing. Now if we go here, pause is not defined, right? Okay, now if we go here, the play pause works, and as you can see right now the playing SVG over here is not being rendered. At the moment we click on the play button, both the song list as well as the player gets re-rendered, and now we have the appropriate SVGs in both places. The other thing we're going to need is go in state.js and go over here, and what we want is for the actual song to play and pause along with the state change. So we'll get the audio element, and over here we can simply call audio.play and audio.pause. So if now right now this audio does not have the streaming API connected, so that's the other thing we're going to change, and this change needs to happen over here when the current song ID is changed. Now we can very well pass the song ID over here, but right now, regardless of the song ID, we're going to stream the same sample song because we just have one sample song within our assets. So I'm just going to leave it at this. And hit save. fs.startSync is not functional. Let's see. Okay. Now if we go reload this, right, so now we have the song playing and we can control it. The only other thing I'm going to add now is the functionality within this like button. I'm also going to add the same like button over in all of these songs so that you can actually click the like button anywhere and it's going to re-render both this and this area. So you'll be able to see the UI react to the user interactions. Let's start here. Right, and I'm going to add the current song ID dot value over here. Right. Now let's add this function. Now what we want to do is, first of all, change the song list state, because this is where we have all of our information about which songs have been liked and which have not been liked. So we're going to do something called optimistic updates. So we're going to assume that this button is going to work. So we're going to update the state for the UI immediately so that you can see this icon get filled and anywhere else all of the changes being reflected in the UI. Then we're going to hit the API that we created for liking and disliking songs, and if the API returns a successful response, we're going to keep everything as it is. Otherwise, we're going to undo the change that we did in our front end state. So everything goes back to the way it was. We're going to create an updated song list and then use our setter function to replace the value inside song list state. So if s.id is not equals to id, we can just return s as it is. If not, we're gonna return everything inside s except for this value, which we're gonna flip. Now, once this is done, we have the song list from state.js. Go over here, and this is gonna instantly re-render the song list, and it's also, I believe, gonna re-render. So it's not re-rendering the player right now, but we actually want that behavior, so we'll add it over here. Render player. Now once this is done, we can do a whole request. But before that, let's just check this much. So if we click on any right, so we need dot value over here. Now if we go over here, you can see the button is working. Now all we need to do is go over here, I'm going to copy this and add it over here, replace this with now it looks much better. Okay, now we'll go back to our server. We have an API for playlists, we have an API for songs, we have the streaming API. I'm going to create another one over here. And over here we're going to use the body of the request, and for that to work we need to add express JSON. Once you have this, you can get song ID and playlist ID from request.body. And over here we'd like to update the songs. The thing is, we sort of have created these songs on the fly, so I wanna okay, here's what I'll do. We'll go over here, and create this. For each playlist, I'm gonna add a key value over here, so p.id, and then we can go back to our server, copy this, paste it here. So we get a new list of songs for every playlist ID, and there are all of the songs are gonna have like unique IDs because they're a combination of the playlist ID and the song ID. And I'm going to run this here. Okay, now we can go back. Import it here, and instead of doing this, we're simply going to we can let go of this, back all the way over here, and simply fetch the song list for this particular playlist ID. Let's test this out. All right. Right, so we can see this is working. Now, what we want to do is when someone hits this API, we want to toggle the like status of the song. So what I'm going to do is go inside all songs, go inside playlist ID, right? And over here, I want some updated songs. So songs is all songs dot playlist ID dot map. In here, we can simply say if s.id equals song ID, then return s but with the like status inverted. Otherwise, simply return s. And once we're done with this, we can add this here. I'm just going to write something like this so that the frontend knows that the update was successfully processed. We can save this and go back to player. And here we can add, we have server. Okay, we'll add the following. So first of all, we need the server slash API slash song slash like, and in here we're gonna need headers, content type, application JSON, and then for body we're gonna need stringified song ID, which is going to be this one ID, right, and playlist ID. Playlist ID is something we can get from, where we get this from. Actually, let's just let's just remove this. Let's only send the song ID and we'll deal with it in our server. Once this is done, we can say wait response.json, right? If data.done then everything is fine, right? But if this is not true, we can simply return. If not, we can change this back. So we're gonna change this like this. Go back here. Go back here. Yep. A rather long function, but I think it's fine for now. Something we're gonna have to change over here now is we won't have the playlist ID. We're gonna have to look for the playlist ID. How do we do that? Well, for am I doing this right? Over yeah, okay, let's do it like this. Right, so now over here I'm gonna add all songs, and we can let go of this line. And what I want is if includes, and over here we can add okay. We'll just declare a function over here. So yeah, find playlist, find playlist ID from song ID. Song ID is passed here. Right, and what we can do is copy this entire thing, paste it here. So if we find the song ID matching with one of the songs, we simply return the key. If nothing else, return no. Now you can say playlist find playlist ID from song ID, pass it here. The rest of the function remains the same. All right, let's test this out. We're gonna keep this here. We're gonna move this over here, and let's say we're in the electronic party playlist. I'm gonna change the styling so that it's very apparent which playlist we're in. But before that, yeah, let's say we're at the song, and we click like. There's no request being sent in, which is weird. Let me just restart the process. Okay. Let's go to this playlist. Click the like button. Like status is updated, but there's no request being sent. So let's check what's happening. If we go to player, we have handle like dislike over here. We do have this function being called, but there's a problem. Okay, I think I know what's happening. We haven't specified the method over here. We can see that the like API is now working, and what I'll do is I'll go to song list, and in here we're gonna add the like button. As you can see, the song that we liked earlier, it's already the button already shows that, right? And I think if we start playing this, turns green, looks pretty good. I'm gonna actually change some styling now. So over here, so regardless of whether it's plain or not, I want the current song to be green, right? Like this. Secondly, I'm gonna have this let's go in playlists, not this. We'll have to go in app here, playlist item. So right, so now if we select a playlist, Okay, we will add something over here. So set the current song. Right, but what I want to do over here is also re-render the playlist. This one is being exported. You can go over here. Right now, if we select a playlist, the color changes by a little bit, which makes it visible, right? And these songs that were liked are also showing up. Now, if let's leave it like this, but what I want to show is like if we are we click like, it immediately reflects over here as well, because this portion is also getting re-rendered and this portion is also getting re-rendered as soon as the state song list changes, right? If we unselect this, again both ways, and the request is also being sent, so it's also being reflected on the server side, right? We can go to other playlists, come back here, see that our songs are like. There is one more thing. When the current selected playlist ID changes, we only want this to work if current song ID dot value equals null, right? So let's say we are here, we go somewhere else, the first song is not selected, this song is still selected. Awesome. Last thing I want to do over here is add a loading state to the song list component. So this is already fetched along with the list of playlists, and right now when we're fetching the song list, it barely takes a second because there's no databases involved and it's a very short list of 10 songs. But normally in a real world application, this could take some time, and we want to display a loader over here while the song list loads whenever we click on a new playlist ID. And in order to do that, we're gonna first declare another state that says is songs loading new state false. Now the songs are loaded over here. So what I'm gonna do is, before the request is made, I'm gonna set this to true. And once we've set the list of songs, or even before that, we're gonna set this to false, right? And we're gonna attach render song list. Right, this is change number 1. Now we want to go inside the song list over here and we want to do something. So this is fine when is song loading is false because all the songs are there. But if we're gonna first have to export this, right? Then go over here. And in this case, we'll simply declare some HTML over here. It says so at the very center we're going to display loader, and if we go over here within our assets, I think we have a spinning circles loader.svg. So this is what we're gonna display. I'm gonna give it something like this, and then all we're gonna do over here, we can push this over here, and now simply say place HTML mail comma h, and then return, because we don't want this to work. Right, now as you can see, the loader is showing up just like we wanted, but the song list is not showing up, and I think there's a bit of a logical error over here. So this is fine on its own. Let's go back to state.js and check what's happening. So once we have fetched the list of songs, okay, so over here we have loader showing up, and even though we've set the list of songs and the song list is going to be re-rendered, right now our is songs loading state is still true, which means if we go inside this function, it's going to exit over here, and the song list is not going to be displayed. Therefore, okay, I know what's happening. We can go over here, change this to dot value. Now it shows up. It's pretty quick because we have like our server is local, but in order to simulate some delay over here, we can just add a set timeout right here. So if I go back to our app, refresh this, it's going to load for 2 seconds, and then the song list shows up. Same thing happens for any other playlist. There's one problem over here, and I think this is with respect to the sample data we have. So this is showing up in player.js probably when the current song is actually null. Alright, now this is pretty much complete. There's one last thing I want to change, and that is the color scheme of the scroll bar. For that, we'll go into index.html, go all the way over here, and so now we have this nice looking dark scroll bar. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this, just change it to 100. Awesome.